Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. My name is Baron Collins Hill. In this week's lesson, we're looking at Lesson 5 in the Improvisation series. In Lessons 1 through 4, I've talked about chord tones, the basic ideas behind improvisation. We've created a little chord structure and a melody to go along with. So if you're just jumping in now, I highly recommend going back and checking out the first 4 lessons. And today's lesson is a deep dive into arpeggios. I've talked a little bit about them in the past, and now we're really gonna dive in and put them to work. If you haven't watched the other lessons, you can find them all at mandolessons.com, as well as on YouTube. All my lessons are always free, and I put out a new one every single week. That said, if you're interested, there's a couple ways to donate. You can find links in the description to a PayPal donation page, as well as join me on Patreon, or you can grab a little merch if you need a t-shirt or a mug, something like that. With all that out of the way, let's jump into today's lesson. Alright, so we've been talking about chord tones a lot in this series, and now we're going to put them all together. So we create arpeggios by combining chord tones and playing them in a line melodically. So we've talked about the chord tones in the key of G with a G chord are G, B, and D. And that creates, when played in that order, a G arpeggio. G, B, D. You can repeat that process going up the fretboard, up the higher strings to G, B, D, and then G and B. You know, find all these G's, B's, and D's on your instrument and just spend a little bit of time playing through as many as you can find. No need to shift up the fingerboard at this point, but if that said, if you want to challenge yourself, by all means. Same thing goes with C. We have C, E, and G target notes in our improvisation for when we hit that C chord. I'm going to find all those notes on the fingerboard in first position. You also have that open G below that C on the G string. And then the same thing with D. We have D, F sharp, and A. Find all those in first position. We have that A on the G string below the D. So we're going to be working with these arpeggios, G, C, and D, to really just hone in our ability to play these in a musical context. So let's start out. I'm going to give us that little chord progression we've been working with, and I'll play an example. The first example, we're going to play these arpeggios always starting with the root of the chord. So I'll give an example once again, and then I'll pass it off to you. Let's get that chord progression going. It goes G, C, D, and back to G. And our exercise is going to sound like this. Keep playing. Always starting with the root. Do it one more time. So it starts with a G. C arpeggio starting with C. D arpeggio starting with D. G arpeggio starting with G. Here you go, you take it. One more. So that in and of itself is a big thing to experiment with, just with, you know, getting comfortable really nailing that the tonic of those arpeggios, always hitting the G when you're on a G chord. So play around with that. You can always slow down or speed up the video using the gear in the bottom right hand corner if you need more time with that exercise, or you can record yourself playing those chords for longer and then play along with yourself. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same exercise, except we're always going to start our arpeggio lines starting with the third of the chord. So when I'm playing a G chord, the arpeggio is going to start with B. And then the C chord is going to start with an E. Same thing with the D chord, is going to start D, E, F sharp is the third. Starting with F sharp, and then back to G, starting with a B. So here we go. I'll start out, let's get the chords going. I'll start out playing the exercise and then I'll pass it off to you. 1, 2, starts with the G chord, B, E, F sharp, B. Here you go, you take it. B. C chord is an E. D chord is an F sharp. Back to a G, which is a B note. Again. One more, here we go. Going home. All right, and now, last but not least, you may guess, is we're going to play that same arpeggio exercise, but you're always going to start on the fifth of the chord using that guide tone as your starting note with your arpeggios. So for the key of G, the fifth note of your chord of your scale is a D. So G, you're starting with a D. With C, you're starting with a G. And then with your D chord, you're starting with an A. And then with G, you're starting with D again. So let's get those chords going. I'll play the example once and then pass it off to you. 2, here we go with the G chord. Sorry. I'll do it one more time. Here you go, starting with a G, which is a D note. Started off with a G for that C chord. Start with an A for the D chord. And a D for the G. Again. One more, here we go. All right, that gives you a lot to work with. It's probably more than you're used to playing your arpeggios and different ways of playing arpeggios than you may have experienced before. Take some time with this. Try it a little bit at a time over the coming days and weeks, and you'll definitely improve. You can't get any worse if you keep trying. That's sort of my motto for playing music in general and most acquiring any new skill in life. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found that helpful. Lots more coming next week with even more fun things to think about in terms of improvisation. We'll start thinking a little bit more melodically. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.